Our pleasure.
It's a lot. Rob, I want to start with you because you've been very open about wanting to see Veronica at a crossroads this season. So we have the guys here. I would love to hear from you about how you wanted to advance their storylines. What was most important to you about where we met them this many years later?
With the guys' storylines?
Yeah. You can start with anybody you want.
I didn't give a shit about the guys. I didn't give them much thought. I think Rico or Keith is my avatar. We're roughly the same age, so shit that I'm worried about. That really is my pill case. That is
wow.
That is the routine I go through each day just to stand up out of bed. So Rico had a lot of material that I'm very familiar with. My mind may be going. I'm not sure. The thing with that I wanted to play with Kristen or with Veronica, and that certainly affected the Logan story, was I feel like you see the story of a man in his 30s or even in his 40s who can't grow up, that Peter Pan complex, a guy who can't commit to marriage or children or a mortgage or, putting away childish things. And I wanted to play that with Veronica. And if I was going to play that with Veronica, it did mean that Logan was going to have to take the other side of that equation, so almost by default. Although, I felt like Logan was on that trajectory for a while. That in the writer's room, we referred to him as being Zach Mayo'd, which if you're not as old as I am, it's from An Officer and a Gentleman. Look it up, it's a terrific film. And then, again, in thinking about Veronica's story, it also made what we did with Wallace important, because I wanted to show an example of somebody who had made all the expected makes it seem somehow boring or something, but that's not what I'm trying to say. Wallace did all the things that society sort of expects of you. I mean, he found a great woman, and he got married, he has a kid, he has a nice house in a nice neighborhood, he is living...
Are you talking about Percy or Wallace?
I believe that, both,
So
I believe.
from your life, it's fine.
And to show Veronica an example of this sort of life. She has so many bad examples in her life. I mean, since she was a teenager, she's been taking pictures of spouses cheating on each other. I wanted to show, hey, here's an example of someone who seems to have gotten it right. And, not to spoil too much, and
I was
really
going to say that we're actually going to assume that nobody in this room has seen the whole season, so we're not going to go into detail.
And this is not this is sort of trailer material, so I'm not really. She's going to become friendly with Nicole over the course of this, and that's an example of a woman who does have a ton of freedom of what to do with her life, and so she's going to have these two things pulling at her. A lot of what is going on in Weevil's life has to do with stuff that we established in the novels, in the two Veronica Mars books, particularly the second one. Once Weevil shows up, you're going to see that they are still at odds from that, and so it really, in a show called Veronica Mars, a lot of what's going on in the men's life has to do with the story I'm telling with Veronica. And then I don't want to give away too much, but Deputy Leo is now a hot FBI agent.
Thank you.
And I don't want to give away too much here either, but Dick Casablancas just still kind of shows up places.
Who doesn't love Dick? We love Dick.
Uh-oh.
We love Dick.
Babe, don't
our
chant
time.
that shit.
So, all that being said, I mean, I'm assuming Rob comes to you as actors with this as the pitch for the season. But before he did that, did any of you have strong feelings about where you wanted your characters to be when we meet up with them again at this stage? And how true to what you wanted is what happened?
I'll answer first. You kind of play with in your mind about what he might be thinking. You know, you have your ideas like it could go this way, it could go that way. I wonder what Rob is thinking. Is kind of what the time I would spend between, whether it be 5 years, 2 years, however many years it may be. You just, you know, when the opportunity sounds like when Rob says, hey, something could be happening, that's when your wheels start turning about, okay, I wonder what he might be thinking about what my character may mean to the story.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have anything that lined up exactly or didn't at all?
I just want to say that ever since I got this job, and I realized that I was going to play a Latino gang member, and I wasn't going to die in the intro. As you guys, if you've been watching on anything but Weevil's roles, I'd usually die in the interrogation room, and it ran on somebody, and I was going to make it, and he was going to, you know, Kristen's been talking about this a lot in press. He was going to show you the choice that the character made, that this guy was born into this life. It's so mysterious, and my headcanon would probably drive Rob crazy. You know, I have all these things made up in my mind about how we've gotten to that world. But I could go on and on about my journey with Weevil. But coming into this season, I literally feel like, I don't know, Rob's telling me he loves me throughout this whole season. And it was just the greatest gift to
We love you.
can't wait for you guys to see it.
Yeah. So you're all busy, and as you mentioned, you know, sometimes it's a few years, sometimes it's more than a few years before they ask you to come back. What did it take for you guys to come back? And I kind of want to go around the horn on this one because you all have different other things going on, so I'm sure it's not the easiest thing.
I ran into these guys in Vancouver. I ran into Rob and Dan in the lobby of a hotel, and then we ended up getting dinner, and they were like, listen, so this is what we're doing. We're pitching it. We're doing another, would you be in? And I go, yeah, of course. And then Rob being, you know, as wonderful, it starts, I think, to answer your other question a little bit. So it's like pitch, I think a little bit. And I thought, no, it's fine. No, just, I'm in. You don't need to do that. and that was about it.
Okay. Easiest deal in Hollywood ever. But
Rob, did you fly out to Vancouver and find out where Max was staying? Or was that like a whole...
It was an elaborate plan.
Like a stakeout?
I totally Veronica Mars.
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody has a similar, like, it didn't take
Everyone
much
else,
to agree.
it was money. Suitcases full of money.
I got a call from Rob. I love telling this story. He says, we're thinking of giving Keith a cane. And I go, I'd much rather come out of the ocean wearing a...
You don't want to see that cane, guys.
He said no. And then it was about money. Yeah.
I mean, there used to be a thing called blooper reels when we had DVDs, and I feel like you should have just shot that anyway. So, once you all are like, yes, I'm in, and it's actually happening, did anyone feel like it was hard to find the character again?
I think we've answered this question a lot, and I think in consensus it's been no, right? I mean, it's been 15 years, and I think we played it for 3 seasons. We played them years later as adults, and then now I just feel like the relationships have been established so strongly and so well, and you're so familiar with the content that it doesn't take but to get on set.
It depends though on how to. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
If we had gotten a call saying, Veronica Mars is coming back, same cast members, but Rob won't be writing it, no one would show up.
Yeah.
No, I'd be scared. I'd be terrified.
No one would show up.
That part.
Because what he writes is who these characters are. We have to do very little work. We just need to know our lines and not bump into the furniture and just have fun with the lines.
If I can interject here for a moment, Vulture, I think, just did a ranking of all 64 prior episodes, and I believe Diane Ruggiero wrote 6 of the top 10.
look.
I think you'd be in good
Yes,
hands.
Diane, of course. I include Diane in the whole
Yeah.
thing. You know,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the
yeah.
and N-Bomb and even Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yes,
I
yes.
include
Yes.
all of it.
But my
Diane,
favorite
though?
episode is what he wrote. My favorite one of the series.
Diane here. Diane here.
Diane, are you here?
Diane, I love you.
Right
there,
Diane.
Swanson.
You're all-
Diane, though. Yeah, girl.
Diane.
Yep.
Trouble.
So walk us through what it felt like the first couple days on set. If the stuff all comes back to you so quickly, is it just you guys having fun with your old friends again, or were there new things because of where the characters are, because of the world of television that we live in, that you hadn't anticipated that maybe proved a little bit more challenging than you expected?
Yes, definitely. I've been doing this since I was 8 years old. That was my first job. You know, I was 8. And I've been able to, I've never been to acting class, done anything. The first method actor I ever really worked with that blew my mind and made me say I want to study acting is this crazy bastard right here who, you know, just blew my mind. You know, my first time we went to dinner together and I sat down after doing the pilot, I got the job just, you know, taking notes from Rob, and Rob told me that we will love you long time. Like, he liked that line. I just couldn't figure out what I did, you know, that made the character special. I sit down with Jay and he's got like notes and diagrams and blueprints of how he's gonna do this and where he's gonna I'm gonna put my fist like this because I saw Brando do it once. And I'm like, whoa, man, like all that's going in. So now I'm 30, I'm in my 30s, we're coming back to the show. I'm like, I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna be like that. And then I look across from me and it's Kristen Bell, and I lose all my words and I lose everything, and I'm like, I just got to play what's on the paper. And luckily, if you guys see, I think it was real good, organic. I think our chemistry is catching up to you, Jay.
All right, so then Jason, I don't want to put you on the spot, but since he just did, what aspects of the season did you find the most challenging, knowing how much work you do to prepare for these types of scenes?
I'll use the mic. Hold on a second. Man, you know, it's funny. I mean, everybody, I don't know, we have a different relationship. So with Kristen, I find a very similar thing where I just look at her and I don't know, she smiles at you and you just feel shit. You know what I mean? So it's fine. And then, you know, the military aspect or whatever, just kind of like trying to put that on top of everything that Rob had created with that character beforehand. You know, that was probably the most significant change.
Yeah.
But I feel like it comes down to one idea, for me anyway, on a certain character, and it was a character I had tried in acting class that was really hard and rough, and I just toned that down a little and had a little more fun, and that was Logan for me. And the note I often got on the pilot from Mark Biznarski is just like, have fun, dude. Have fun, let it go, you know? And I think Rico preaches that as well.
So, I mean, Rob touched on this earlier, but obviously, you know, the show is called Veronica Mars, so all of the relationships are tied to hers. And two of the most important relationships, obviously, are Keith and Logan thus far. There were certain things I'm sure you couldn't do with those relationships when she was a teenager. Scene we just saw, maybe with Logan, one of them. What were some of the things that you were the most excited about, all three of you, to get to explore now that you're all adults, all working on a slightly more mature tone?
Well, I mean,
The scene you just saw, I
the
know.
easy thing to say is I love getting to swear. That was.
But you didn't.
Yeah.
Didn't. You took it down.
Well, we couldn't say fuck. That was, and
Mine too.
And there were 18 in the pilot when they told us that we couldn't. But honestly, that I understood Hulu's reasons for that. They because they bought all 3 seasons prior to it, they wanted fans to be able to go back and forth, and were concerned that if we were TVMA, that wouldn't be possible. So I understood the reason, but still, it was a ton more latitude getting to do it. You know, the experiment, and I don't know that. I mean, we've gotten to see the reviews, but I think the proof will be in sort of the viewership. Like, my concern has been, like, if you do Doogie Howser, boy doctor, and you try to do that 20 years later, and it's like, Doogie Howser, doctor. Well, people care. So, the challenge was we pitched this show as teen girl detective. We better make sure she is a kick-ass detective because we don't have that hook in our premise anymore. It is just, this is our badass detective. We hope you're along for the ride.
Yeah. Enrico, did you find relating to your on-screen daughter as an adult very different?
No.
Okay. Because their banter is consistent, but
Pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And the respect he had for her as a teenage daughter sort of
yeah.
lends itself as an adult. The good thing is that he doesn't have to feel guilty for putting her into dangerous situations
True.
anymore. It's like, okay, you're one of us now. Go have it.
True, very true. So there's always the question of if there will be more. So I'm not asking you that question right now, but I want to ask you guys what you consider your legacy with the show, whether there is more or not. What is the thing you want people to remember about you and your character and this show?
I would like Rob to wake up one morning and say, I did it. The vision I had for this character in this world. You know what I mean? To just say, you know what? There it is. I can tie a bow around it, and I'm good.
I like that idea.
Does anyone else have?
That's a tough question.
I know.
I think I'll just say one quick thing. I think that the show means I don't know. You do other shows and stuff like that, and I think the show means so much to people. Like we just did Comic-Con and we did all these events and press stuff, and nothing matters except for you guys viewing it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
no, seriously. And just going out and talking to the fans was literally my favorite part of everything, and it was a long day. Because really, like, that's the service that's being delivered, and that's, it was, people say, oh, is it tough to talk to fans? It's probably the best people to talk to because that's why you do it. And so I think I'm so proud to be part of something that's such good quality and means something to people, because I think it meant something to us and to each member of the cast when we really, poured all our Brando into it, you know what I mean?
Jason saying that kind of guided me into my answer, and I guess for everybody out there and everybody who's ever seen it, it's up for interpretation what that legacy, what Wallace Fennell's legacy is to them. But for me, it'll be all of this. It'll be the mall tours and the stories, and the person who was in Iraq who told me the story about how it was the last DVD on the shelf, and it saved his life, and all those stories that I've compiled in here that I'll tell my son and my daughter one day. Like Rob did that, Daddy did that. You know what I mean?
It's heroic. It's heroic. I mean, that's what I would want as well. I would want to leave a legacy of being a hero. But Rob said something really, really cool, which is that all of us, our stories are told through our relation to Veronica. This show is called Veronica Mars for a reason. Our leader's not here today. I mean, I say Rob's our leader a lot, but we have another leader. We have the most powerful woman I've ever met. She's the titular character. I hope that I fulfill my responsibility as being a vehicle for Veronica to spread her wings and experience only what she could experience through each of our individual relationships.
Yeah.
If I can say nothing else, if I can just at the end of this run say that I launched Max Greenfield's career. And really, I'm a happy man.
Do you feel like he can say that? You have to say yes.
No.
Obviously we can't control what the fans think of the show, but it's the people you work with, and we got to shoot this show on the WB Ranch. And I don't know if you're familiar with that lot, but it contains the Friends Fountain. And during shooting, me and Dan Etheridge is here.
Yeah, the Dan Etheridge, the one and only.
I'll post these photos later on the internet. But I made Dan take photos with me by the Friends Fountain. And to this day, it's the most long-lasting and most meaningful friendship I have in the business. Dan Etheridge.
Okay.
All right.
Max, I gotta say, there's a podcast out there. Okay, there's a particular podcast. I don't know if they're here tonight. They are your biggest fans. It's a Veronica Mars podcast, and they've been shipping Veronica and Max. I think that I hope they're here. I hope you get to see them.
You just started with there's a podcast, and I went, oh no.
Oh my gosh! But I hope they're here so they see you.
Well, I am so happy you all were here. That's about our time, but stick around. There's going to be trivia after this. And